Hi, Nick Doganor State Law. We safeguard your professional license so you can get back to business. Today, we're going to talk about the importance for healthcare workers to properly document in their patient charts. This is commonly referred to as properly charting or proper documentation. But basically, what you're doing is you're inputting notes into your patient's chart. So everybody that interacts with that patient again sees what happened when you were seeing that particular patient. And the reason I say healthcare workers is because I've seen most of these type of complaints have been against healthcare workers. I don't know if I've ever seen one where an attorney didn't properly take notes on a case. I don't care what profession you're in, it's always a great idea to take notes every time you talk with a client or a patient, or opposing counsel in my particular case, or anything, or as regarding a particular patient or client. Um, the reason it's most prevalent in healthcare is so many people will essentially touch the chart, especially like if you're a nurse or you're a physician or a PA or an NP. um, you're going to have so many people that touch that patient's chart. And not only like for what they're currently being treated for, but things in the future. And then the other thing, obviously, is the need to treat and the severity of something if it goes untreated or is treated incorrectly. So that's why when it comes to documentation with healthcare professionals, it is so important to get it right and to actually do it. Physical therapists, I should say, are another profession where I've seen improper charting, and that can lead to complaints. That does happen more often than not with physical therapists. When there is a complaint, that's probably the most common one that I've seen, and I think it's not. It's by a very large margin. It is charting, charting, charting. Proper documentation is so important for anybody in the healthcare field. I don't care if where you're at. You got to do it. You could be in a slow office. You could be in an ICU. You could be just kind of a bedside on a step down unit. You could, doing consultations as a physician or an NP or a PA. You know, charting and charting correctly, most importantly, for the reasons I mentioned previously, is extremely important. And a couple of the things that I've seen that will result in issues is fraudulent documentation. You cannot do that. If you didn't see somebody, don't put in the chart that I saw John Smith at 6:52 p.m. on October 12th, 2025. If you never saw John Smith at 6 whatever I said, October 12th, 2025. I mean, you're going to get caught. I've seen people that have charted for a client that passed away a week before they supposedly sat down with the patient. Obviously, they're going to find out, and that's going to lead to some sort of discipline, because that goes hand in hand with fraud. Because as you're a healthcare professional, obviously you're billing, or at least somebody is billing, right? So it happens a lot where it's the billing fraud with physical therapists. I've seen it with physicians and NPs, PAs. I have seen it with nurses, but more of people that are doing like in home health, where the time is tracked more than it would be if you're in a hospital setting. So that's another thing where technically, that is insurance fraud. And as a result, that could, spin into criminal. I've not really seen anybody that has been in trouble on the criminal side for doing something like that, unless it is like on a pretty big scale. Um, I don't recommend doing it at all. I think doing fraudulent documentation is the quickest way to get discipline for anybody, especially those in the healthcare field. And the other thing is, mistakes do happen. And I had a medical board matter recently, and we had a long discussion throughout that hearing about mistakes, and is one mistake enough to show that, a person is not competent in their field? Like, obviously not. I think everybody that's watching this video, hopefully it's a lot of you, but even if it's only a couple, everybody has made mistakes in their profession. All right. But there's a difference between making an honest mistake and, documenting something that you did or that you didn't do, and you're claiming that you did do it. That's why that particular area of charting infractions is going to be one of, if not the most egregious, as for obvious reasons. If you're charting that you did a specific, gave a specific medication, or did a specific thing with a patient, like you were supposed to give them ice for treatment, and that wasn't done, or whatever the case may be, there could potentially be serious long-term repercussions for that for the patient. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Now, the thing that I will say I've seen the most is not really. I haven't seen the fraudulent documentation a ton. I have, because I've been doing this for a long time. I have seen a number of them, but the one that I've seen most commonly is just an accident where somebody was rushing through something. They've got, it could be, and I've seen this with physicians, NPs, PAs, nurses, and it's the amount of people that are put in front of people in the healthcare industry nowadays. There's not spaced out a lot of time, unfortunately, unless you're in a very controlled private practice setting. Unless, and even in that, some people get greedy and they want to stack patients on you over and over and over again. You gotta set some time between one patient and the next to properly chart. Have to. There's no way around it. One of the things that I've seen that's led to errors is basically note dumping, where somebody will do 7P to 7A over at, maybe, I don't want to name a hospital or anything like that, but say at XYZ hospital, they're doing a 7P to 7A, that worked all night, and they didn't chart throughout the night because they had, maybe they had 8, 9 patients and they were supposed to only have 6. Most people would say, oh, well, that's only 2 or 3 more people. From my understanding, that's a lot more work, right? So what ends up happening in that particular situation is the nurse or the NP or the PA or even the MD, they may do a note dump at the end of the shift. Oh, well, hey, I got a pretty good memory. Here's what happened with this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. When you do that, though, you're going to miss something eventually. That's just the nature of the beast. Don't do that. Again, take a couple minutes between patients, go chart, even if it's, you want to be as thorough as possible. 100%. You want to be as thorough as possible. Sometimes, that would mean taking the extra minute or two. Go ahead and do that. Just be thorough. Don't cut corners. Just be thorough. It's going to help you short term. It's going to help the patient short term. It's going to help the patient long term. And it's going to help you short term, medium term, and long term as well. So you definitely want to set aside time for that. And you might think, oh, I don't have time to do that. Make time. It is super important to do that. One of the most important things when it comes to charting, as I previously mentioned, is properly documenting when somebody got a medication. Because if you're not documenting that you gave a medication, but you pulled it from the Pyxis machine or the Omnicell, but it's not, and you scanned it that you gave them, but you didn't note, that could be a flag to your employer. And you might have done everything correctly, but you didn't document it. So you pulled it. So they're going to show the pull. They're going to show an administration of the medication to the patient because you're going to scan it, but you didn't document it. That it's not the end of the world. Don't get me wrong, but you can save yourself even a small headache by properly charting. Like, hey, at 12:58 a.m., I gave Jane Williams 5 milligrams of XYZ. And if it's a controlled substance specifically, you definitely want to put that stuff in there just so everything matches up. You want the Pixie Omnicell to match up from the pull to the administration when you scan somebody's wristband, and then when you go in and you're charting stuff, you want to put it in the chart as well, that you actually administered it. If you wasted it or you returned it, obviously, not get a little bit off topic, but it's still all related. You want to make sure that you have a witness for the waste or the return. And I think most hospitals require that you have the witness sign it. Even if they didn't require it, you definitely want to do that, because otherwise people forget, or they say, I don't know, or no, I didn't do that, and they could be wrong. But if they sign something saying like, I witnessed such and such do such and such, and they wasted it or they returned it, then you've got that taken care of. So we talked about no note dumping. That's not good. You're going to end up making a mistake. We talked about the importance of charting, especially for medication and specifically controlled substances, most importantly, but all medications really. You want to any sort of anything that you've done with a patient regarding other care. You want to make sure that's done as well. I've seen where RNs or LPNs, obviously with PTs as well, where there was something that was needed, some sort of device required for the patient, or with a PT, obviously with the care that was done with the patient, the exercises that were going through, what was done, the outcome of it, any concerns that the patient had, any concerns at the beginning of the treatment with the patient. And that's the other thing, what has been communicated to you and you communicated to the patient are of equal importance. You don't want to not include something that you told the patient. Like, hey, I told you to do X, Y, Z, or I told patient on such and such date, such and such time to do X, Y, Z. We have a lot of people in this country that don't comply with medical advice from their providers and or other medical staff. But you know what? If you don't have it in the chart, then nobody's going to know that you actually told them to do something. If you have it in the chart and they didn't do it, that's on them. And also, if they told you something, hey, I fell out of bed. That's one that I've seen somewhat, not a ton, but a decent bit. Hey, I fell out of bed, and you're not charting that, then that's a problem, because a lot of these hospitals and adult care home facilities, they have a process for somebody's falling out of bed, a whole thing to kind of check and make sure that no bones were broken or any damage was done to the patient by falling out of the bed. And you guys also have to look at it this way. Everybody likes to think that their employer really loves them and everything like that. And for the most part, probably do. They probably love the fact that you work for them. You probably do a great job. But at the end of the day, if something happens, especially if it's a large hospital entity, they're looking out for them, right? They're going to look out for them. They're going to see where they can lay blame. And the first thing they do is they look at the chart. And if the chart is crisp and it's done very well and everything is documented the way it should be, then you are covering yourself, okay, on multiple levels, not only in just regard to your employer, but also in regard to your licensing entity. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is if there's an issue with the charting, the last person that was on shift with that particular patient when something went wrong and their charting isn't very good, they haven't documented X, Y, Z, even though they might have done it, they're going to take the blame. And then they're going to get reported by their employer to their licensing entity. Sometimes cameras catch somebody doing something that they forgot to put in the chart, but don't rely on that. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot where the camera actually works in your favor. I would say most of the time the camera doesn't work in your favor. But don't rely on it either way. Proper documentation is extremely important if you're in the healthcare industry. So you got to make sure that you make time for that. No excuses. You have to make sure that you have time to do it, and just make time. A lot of times we get sidetracked with, hey, can you help me out with this? Hey, I'm sorry, I'd love to do that. Maybe in a couple minutes, let me go ahead and document this. And then if I got a couple minutes before I see my next patient, I'll be happy to help you out, but I really got to get this documentation done. When my second kid was born, I will never forget this. I'm sitting there I'm waiting, and I'm in the hallway, and I could hear this nurse. It was probably 3 something in the morning. I was super tired, but I'll never forget I heard this nurse talking about, um, documentation and charting and how, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I'll get to it later." She was on the 7P to 7A shift. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I need to go over there and tell her, like, she needs to go ahead and start charting and documenting right now. But I was so tired that I didn't really have a chance. By the time I looked back over, she was gone. But that always stuck out to me because I've had so many clients over the years, like I'd mentioned, in a lot of different healthcare fields that they all they had to do was take 2 minutes, maybe three, whatever the case may be, and just do a quick, just do some notes, some people say, well, I don't have time to do 2 pages. You got to just put in, you got to put in what happened. This was part of the encounter with the patient, right? Multiple reasons why. I've already went over all. I'm not going to rehash them. But, the biggest thing as it goes for you as a professional is it helps keep your license clean, right? And it helps you keep a good reputation with not only this employer, but potentially future employers. As you grow in your profession, you want to keep all options open. And that's a great way to do it is to properly document. And if you run into any issues with, hey, I'm getting too many patients back to back to back, I don't have time to do this, you need to put in writing to your immediate supervisor and maybe their supervisor, this is an issue. I'm bringing it up. There's a lot of protections. We don't do employment law here, but we know some people we refer to. But there's a lot of protections for people that bring up issues to employers. And as long as you properly document that, and documentation is obviously the theme for this video, but even on that respect of making sure your employer is aware that there are issues with the amount of patients that are being seen by you and or other licensed professionals, as long as you put that in writing, you're covering yourself on again multiple levels. So I hope that was useful information. I've got a lot of other videos to check out. So make sure you stay on our YouTube channel and check out some of those other videos. I got blogs as well on our updated fancy news site. That's northstatelawfirm.com. So check out those blogs as well. And if you still can't find what you're looking for in either one of those spots, then feel free to give my office a call or a text at 919-521-8810, and you'll get a free 15-minute discovery call with a member of my staff. And thank you so much for taking care of North Carolina. I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Bye-bye.